right, thanks for joining me. So today I want to talk about using alcohol to cope with narcissistic abuse. And this is in response to a comment I got from a viewer that described to me what he's going through, with drinking, coping from narcissistic abuse from a girlfriend, and the situations that it's putting him in. And from my experience, I was in that exact situation. And from my experience, there is a way out. You can get out of that situation, and if you want to, you can quit drinking alcohol, you can get away from the narcissist, and you can put yourself in a completely new, better place. And so I want to explain how you can do that and how I did that. So the situation I was in was I had a narcissistic girlfriend, and she had abruptly left and then kept me on the line for many years, for like 3 years, with like the love bombing and pulling at your heartstrings, and manipulating me and controlling me remotely from from another place while she had other boyfriends. And so I was coping with that by using alcohol. That's when I really got a drinking problem. And so what's happening in your body and in your mind and in your psyche is coping is a natural release mechanism that your mind uses. So the brain is engaging in coping to reach a homeostasis in the body, because what's happening is you're experiencing anxiety and different emotions that it's draining energy from your body, and your brain is always trying to conserve energy, and coping is one way that it does it. So what it's doing, it's trying to find a release from the anxiety and the mental strain and the pressure that you're experiencing from the narcissistic abuse. So it's really easy to cope with drugs like alcohol or marijuana or cocaine or heroin or whatever the drug is, because what it does is it disconnects your psyche from your body and what you're physically experiencing. And so alcohol being a depressant, it's a relaxant, so it's going to relax your muscles, and it's going to make it so you're disassociating from the anxiety and the mental strain that you're experiencing. So it's really common in societies and cultures, especially in the West, to turn to alcohol or drugs because they're promoted all throughout society. There's drugs and alcohol everywhere. And they provide the instant relief that you're looking for. But the problem is that if you're choosing to cope in a negative way, the side effects can be detrimental to your health and to safety and well-being of the general public, especially if you're drinking and driving. And that was my problem, is I drink at home and pass out and go to sleep, but then, you get bored, so then you go out, and so then I'd be going out to bars and, trying to relieve this pressure by drinking, and then I'm drinking and driving. And that's a huge risk to your own life. You could literally die, or you could get in a wreck and kill somebody else. So understanding taking that risk is huge, because it's a huge gamble with your own life and the people around you. So that's an example of coping in a negative way. And once you understand how coping works, you can then start you can cope in a positive way. And the way I figured that out is with a simple saying, is the truth will set you free. And if you always keep that in mind, the truth will set you free. And so I began coping with what I was experiencing by learning and gaining knowledge and understanding. And so the first thing I was doing was I started to learn about alcohol and the effects it was having on my body. And I made that decision to start learning about the side effects that alcohol had on my body through, just forgiving myself for what I was going through. And, I stopped blaming myself for everything. And then I started to just practice self-love and self-care. And I made that decision in a conscious way. Like, I want to, I want a better life. I want a wife. I want kids. I want a happy life. And so I want to learn how to do that. And, part of that is forgiving yourself and then loving yourself and then moving forward with that intention. And so you start learning about how bad alcohol is for you and all the problems it causes. And then that empowers you to then make a conscious decision from a place of empowerment to then decide, I don't want to use alcohol, to solve my problem. There's other ways to solve the problem. So that's one way you can begin coping in a healthy way. Other ways is, obviously exercise. That helps relieve a lot of pressure. That helps calm your body, calm your brain, calm your nervous system. Endorphins. All of that contributes to your mind and your body becoming at ease with the mental tension you're experiencing. Diet is another huge one. Clean up your diet. Start eating good, organic, whole foods. You want to know about how to eat healthy? Organic, whole foods. That's the whole thing. You want to make sure there's no pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, chemicals applied to the food. You want organic fruits and vegetables. You want to eat good, healthy, free-range meat products with no hormones, grass-fed, all that kind of stuff. That's what you want to focus on. And you want that food to be in the whole form. The further you get away from foods being in their whole form, the harder it is for your body to digest it. And really, that's the key to eating healthy. There it is. I just laid it out for you. So focus on health, because when your body has the nutrients it needs to supply your brain to function properly, and your muscles and your blood and your tissue and your organs, that is part of healing the mental trauma and the anxiety and the mental conditions that you're dealing with. Diet it's underrated in mental health. People don't talk about diet and mental health enough, but I want to make that point. So that is a good way of coping. You've got understanding and knowledge, you've got exercising, you have diet and self-care and self-love. The other thing too is, when you gain the understanding, you get this feeling of empowerment, and you have to start observing the behavior of the people that are in your life. And then you'll begin to understand what they're doing. Because the narcissist is, when you're coping from narcissistic abuse, the narcissist is using all their weapons against you. Like the gaslighting. They're manipulating your reality, and they're making you feel like you're the bad guy and they're the victim. And so they're so good at manipulating your reality that you won't understand what's truly happening. And the reality is the narcissist is mentally, psychologically abusing you and sucking your energy, and ultimately wants you in a compromised position so they can just fully drain you of your life force. And then that's what empowers them. So when you gain the knowledge and information and the empowerment, you're this observer, and you're watching these demonic narcissists and their behavior. And once you begin to see it clearly, it doesn't affect you as much. You then start to take back your power. The problem is people that experience narcissistic abuse through their life, what happens is they become comfortable with that form of relationship to other people. So what happened to me was, I was narcissistically abused by my mother for so long that then I would, through that trauma, that's how I related to other women. So then I would always end up with these narcissistic women, because that's how I learned to relate to women, was through this narcissistic traumatic abuse. And that's called trauma bonding. And when you start learning about narcissism, you'll understand how your concept of love and affection it's all twisted up and manipulated. So most likely in this guy's situation, he probably experienced narcissistic abuse as a child, and now he's trauma bonded to a narcissistic girlfriend who is torturing him and putting him in this position of coping by drinking and, ultimately like putting him in a very dangerous position. So once you begin to understand the behavior, you can then empower yourself to make a decision. That's the whole thing. You are the sole person in control of your life. People can influence you and make it appear like they're controlling your life, but at the end of the day, there's only one person controlling your life, and that is you. And when you understand that, you take back your power and you begin to make conscious decisions that you make intentionally. I made the decision that I want all these shitty people out of my life that are just draining me. I only want to be around good people, and I want to better myself to attract a good person, a good wife that I then can marry and then have a family with. That was my main goal when I was in my 30s, and getting over this narcissistic abuse problem. That's all I wanted. And, I set that intention for myself, and I made the decisions from an informed place of empowerment. And that's exactly what happened. A year later, when I cut all those people off and I stopped drinking, I met my wife. And, I am living proof. If I can do it, you can do it. And what I've shared with you, these steps and these strategies, this is how you do it. I mean, this is what you can. This is one way. I'm sure there's other ways to figure all this out, but this is how I figured it out. This is how I did it. And we're one and the same. We're all humans, and we all have emotions. We all have spirits. We all have brains. We all have the same makeup, and we're experiencing life in a very similar way. And we're all trying to understand that. And we're all coping with life. There's so many stresses and problems that we're bombarded with throughout our entire life. And, the big thing here is this is just one problem of many that you will face in your life. And when you get control of how to cope with problems, and you understand the difference between healthy coping and unhealthy coping, and you can act from a place of being informed and empowered and conscious of the decisions that you're making, you've got it. You've got it from there, because you're acting from a place of observation, and rather than emotionally reacting to a situation and letting a narcissist control your decisions, because that's what's happening. For this guy, he's emotionally reacting to what the narcissist is doing to him, and then he's acting from a place, he's uninformed, and the narcissist is emotionally manipulating him, and then he just wants to escape that. And alcohol, whatever, weed, whatever the choice of drug is, you can just, you get a break and you escape it. And it's really easy to do that, but it is detrimental and very dangerous. So those are the things to keep in mind. But there is a way out, and hopefully, you can hear this advice and start thinking about it, because life is so precious, and we just have this one shot at life. And the reality is that one person experiencing a positive, fulfilled life can influence the entire world. One person. We don't know what one person is capable of when they're in their state, of happiness and fulfillment and a positive life. And they could solve so many problems for the world. And right now, everyone is bombarded by all these issues and problems, and that's eating up all their time. But when you free up your mind, and your body is healthy and your spirit is healthy, and you're able to think and solve problems for society and humanity, we don't know what we're capable of. And so that's where we got to get to. You know, that's the plan. But first we got to solve this problem of the narcissistic abuse that is affecting everyone in society. So I hope this was helpful, and I appreciate making these videos, and I appreciate everyone watching. And I just wanted to do an update on, this is a side note to my business, because so I work in forestry, and I'm a fire fuels reduction contractor. That's going into the forest and removing hazardous wildfire fuels that fuel wildfires. So I remove those fuels and I mitigate them, and that's my business. So anyway, I'm going in, so an active fire just kicked off last night. It went from 3 acres to 100, and it's in a level 1 evacuation zone, which means be ready, go. And my job site, I'm on a 15-acre job site right now. I'm about halfway through it. I'm right in the thick of this fire. So they've been bombing it with planes and helicopters. And the 2 guys I'm working with, I'm working on this fire, or on this job with another company. And they work for fire too. They got called to the fire. So they're out on the fire. I'm on the job alone. And yeah, man, it's like, I don't know what to expect. I have my equipment there, and on top of that, it's going to be 104 degrees today. So I'm going to be working in this gnarly heat, running equipment and chainsaws, and we've got the fire burning, and all the properties around me are all level 1 evac, and the property I'm on is a cattle ranch with like 150 head of cattle. So that guy's going to have to evacuate all his animals if this fire starts ripping. But I'm headed out there now, and there's definitely a lot of smoke in the air, so I don't know, man. I'll let you know how it goes. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Okay.